0442 local time, Western Pacific. International waters. Inside the Combat Information Center, the screens glow a muted blue. Range rings tighten. Course vectors redraw themselves without commentary. No one raises their voice. They don't need to. 5 surface contacts, unidentified. Speed increasing. The call is flat, professional, logged. On the bridge, the officer of the deck shifts his weight and looks down at the repeater. The numbers tell the story faster than eyes ever could. Distance shrinking, angles converging, closest point of approach recalculated again. Below deck, steel doors cycle open and shut as watchstanders move with purpose. Boots hit deck plates, headsets settle into place. Every motion is muscle memory earned the hard way. Conditioned posture changes without ceremony. No alarms, no theatrics, just readiness. The ship holds course. That matters. Out on the water, the 5 contacts are still officially unknown. No eyes, no friendly response to bridge hails. Their profiles sharpen with every mile. Hull length, superstructure spacing, radar cross-sections that don't belong to fishing boats or merchant traffic. This isn't random traffic. This is approach behavior. CPA under 7 nautical miles and decreasing. On the bridge, the captain steps forward. He doesn't touch the console. He doesn't speak right away. He watches the same numbers everyone else is watching, letting the situation finish explaining itself. The ship does not change speed. That also matters. The ocean stays calm, but the geometry does not. 2 contacts slide into parallel tracks off the port and starboard quarters. The other 3 angle inward, not aggressively, not yet, but enough to tighten the picture. This is where accidents are born or prevented. Contacts remain unresponsive to hails. Long-range optics come alive. White wakes cut clean lines across the water. You can see the discipline in how they're made. No wandering helms, no indecision. These ships know where they're going. In SIC, an analyst leans closer to his screen, comparing silhouettes against memory. Broad hulls, stacked superstructures, the kind of shapes you don't confuse with anything else once you've seen them enough times. Likely military surface combatants. The bridge acknowledges. Nothing else changes. Outside, the range ticks down again. 6 nautical miles, then 5.4. The ship's 5-inch mount slews a few degrees, not to target, just to be seen. A movement so slight most people would miss it. Anyone trained to read warships won't. Inside the Chinese ship's bridges, someone sees it. They have to. No one fires, no one locks, no one escalates yet. Contacts now visually identified. 5 Chinese warships, no one reacts. Nationality answers questions, but it doesn't change math. The math still says they're close. Too close. One of the 5 increases speed by a handful of knots. Just enough to register. Just enough to test. On the bridge, the captain finally speaks. Maintain course. Log everything. The ship keeps moving. A steady gray line cutting through blue water. Systems awake. People focused. Restraint intact. Every sensor records. Every second is time-stamped. Every maneuver becomes evidence. The range stops shrinking for a moment. Then it shrinks again. Out here, nothing is loud. Nothing explodes. But 5 warships have closed to a distance where mistakes stop being abstract. And everyone on board knows the next few minutes will decide whether this stays professional or becomes something else entirely. The pressure mounts. At 05:07 local time, the range closes in increments small enough to look harmless, large enough to matter. 2 of the 5 Chinese warships settle into near-parallel courses off both flanks. They match speed with precision that leaves no doubt. This isn't drift. This is station keeping. The other 3 angle inward, not sharply, just enough to force constant recalculation. The kind of approach that lives in the gray space between routine shadowing and unsafe maneuvering. CPA now under 4 nautical miles. Acknowledged. Logged. The officer of the deck makes a slight correction with the rudder to maintain steady track. The ship's wake straightens behind her like a ruler drawn across water. Another hail goes out over bridge to bridge. Professional tone, standard phrasing, no accusations. Silence answers back. That silence is information. Long-range cameras sharpen their focus. Hull numbers come into view. You can see sailors topside, helmets on, hands resting where hands rest when people are watching closely. No weapons are manned, not overtly. That matters too. Contact 3, adjusting course 3 to starboard. That slight shift compresses space, pulling the formation tighter. Time to CPA shortens by seconds. Seconds count. On the bridge, no one speaks unless they have to. The captain watches the same display the watch team watches. He doesn't interrupt. He lets the process run. This is how discipline looks when it's real. The 2 parallel ships hold position with unnerving consistency. Their bow waves mirror ours almost perfectly. Steel shadows running alongside at a distance just wide enough to claim safety, just narrow enough to apply pressure. Those ships are the walls. The other 3 are the lid. The nearest Chinese warship increases speed again. 3 knots. Nothing dramatic, enough to send a message, enough to see whether the American ship will blink. She doesn't. Course steady, speed unchanged. The ship's systems continue to record everything. Radar tracks, video feeds, timestamps precise to the second. In SIC, an analyst murmurs an observation that doesn't go into the log. They're boxing us in. The watch supervisor nods once. Another radio hail goes out, slightly firmer. This is United States Navy warship conducting lawful transit. Recommend you maintain safe distance per international regulations. Again, nothing comes back. That silence stretches longer this time, long enough to confirm it's intentional. The ocean remains calm. That's what makes this dangerous. There's no weather to blame, no swell to excuse miscalculation. Every meter closed is chosen. CPA now under 3 nautical miles. At this distance, collision avoidance rules stop being theoretical. The margin for error shrinks to helm orders, measured in degrees and seconds. The 5-inch gun mount shifts again, just a few degrees. Not a threat, a reminder, enough to be noticed. Inside the Chinese formation, something changes. The lead ship hesitates, its speed fluctuating before stabilizing. The parallel ships remain locked in place, but their wakes lengthen slightly, as if their engines are being worked harder. Pressure without commitment. This is the game. The 3 converging ships close to their tightest point yet. The geometry is now unmistakable. This is not shadowing. This is a calculated squeeze designed to force a reaction. But the reaction never comes. The American ship holds her line, calm, documented, unmoved. Every sensor stays hot. Every action is logged. No one rushes, no one improvises. That restraint is not weakness, it's control. Then, almost imperceptibly, the first crack appears. One of the Chinese warships eases off the throttle, just enough to widen the gap by a fraction. Not a retreat. Not yet. But the range stops shrinking. For the first time in minutes, the numbers hold. The bridge remains silent. Because out here, the moment someone celebrates is usually the moment everything goes wrong. And the situation is not over. Not yet. Holding the line. At 05:21 local time. The range holds steady, but the tension does not release. Holding distance is not the same as backing off. On the bridge, the captain gives a short nod. Transition posture. No escalation. The ship doesn't change speed. She doesn't alter course. What changes is awareness. Below deck, systems that were already awake move into sharper focus. Sensors widen their sweep. Data flows faster, tighter, cleaner. A helicopter crew finishes their checks in silence. Rotor blades remain still. This isn't about flight yet. It's about option. Long-range optics track the Chinese formation continuously. Now the video feed is crisp enough to see hand signals on open decks. Crew clustered near railings. Faces turned toward the American ship. They are watching. That's the point. One of the Chinese warships nudges closer again. Barely a degree change, barely a knot of speed. Enough to say, we're still here. It doesn't work. The American destroyer's course line stays ruler straight. The wake behind her is unchanged. The message is quiet, but unmistakable. Inside the Combat Information Center, the watch team updates the log with machine precision. Bearing, speed, time, everything has a place. One of the parallel ships edges slightly aft, falling back by a few hundred yards. Not a withdrawal, a recalibration. The other four maintain their angles, but the squeeze loosens by inches. In close encounters, inches are language. The 5-inch mount settles into a new resting angle, still neutral, still unfired, still impossible to ignore. For the first time since contact, one of the Chinese warships alters course away by a measurable margin. 4. Clean. Deliberate. That's not an accident. The range opens slightly. Not much. Enough to register. The American ship does nothing in response. No pursuit, no follow-on maneuver. Because the goal was never to push back. It was to hold ground. The Chinese formation begins to stretch. The ship that had been anchoring the starboard parallel track drifts farther aft. 2 of the 3 flanking ships stop angling inward and settle onto safer lines. From the bridge, the ocean looks unchanged. Same calm surface, same sun climbing low on the horizon. But the invisible geometry has shifted. This is the moment most people never see in headlines. No alarms, no warnings, no dramatic turns, just 5 warships deciding almost simultaneously that the test has reached its limit. The American destroyer continues her transit exactly as planned. No adjustments made to capitalize. No effort to chase advantage. That restraint is intentional. Because presence is strongest when it doesn't ask permission. The range opens another half-mile. Enough. The captain finally speaks again. Maintain posture. Continue logging. Nothing more. 5 Chinese warships remain in sight, but their behavior has changed. The approach has softened. The angles have relaxed. The squeeze is gone. No one says it aloud, but everyone understands what just happened. A line was drawn, not with missiles, not with words, but with discipline, documentation, and a ship that refused to move an inch it didn't have to. The turn. At 05:48 local time. The numbers change first. Range opens by fractions of a mile. Speed readouts on the nearest Chinese warship dip, then stabilize. The wake behind it shortens. Engines ease without ceremony. On the bridge, the officer of the deck watches the repeater and calls the change exactly once. Contact 1, reducing speed, logged. The parallel ship that had held station for nearly an hour slips aft, no longer matching perfectly. The symmetry breaks. Station keeping has ended. Shadowing remains, but the pressure has bled off. The other 4 ships follow a heartbeat later. Their inward angles soften, bows easing outward by degrees that matter. The formation opens. Space returns. This is how standoffs end at sea. Not with declarations, with geometry. The American destroyer does not react. No change in speed, no change in heading. That restraint seals the outcome more decisively than any maneuver ever could. Inside the Combat Information Center, The CPA expands past thresholds that had been highlighted minutes earlier. A junior analyst marks the moment when the ranges stop decreasing and begin to widen. He circles it digitally, not because it's dramatic, but because it matters. This is the pivot point, the instant the encounter stopped escalating and started unwinding. One of the Chinese warships transmits a brief radio call. The signal is clear, controlled, and deliberately bland. The bridge receives it without comment. The captain listens, then responds with equal economy. This is United States Navy warship conducting lawful transit. Your maneuvers have been recorded. Maintain safe distance. Nothing more. The radio goes quiet again. That silence feels different now. It no longer presses, it releases. The sea remains calm. Sunlight glints off steel. To an untrained observer, it might look like nothing happened at all. But every person on board knows better. Because the difference between what almost happened and what did happen is measured in seconds, degrees, and discipline. The distance continues to open. 1 nautical mile, then another. The Chinese ships drift into looser formation, no longer coordinated tightly enough to signal intent. The American destroyer keeps going. No victory lap, no visible relief. Professionalism demands neutrality even in success. On deck, sailors remain at their stations longer than necessary. Only when the ranges pass beyond the danger envelope do shoulders ease just slightly. The captain walks the bridge slowly, checking each station with his eyes rather than his voice. Everything is in order. It always was. This wasn't a test of firepower. It was a test of control. And control held. The Chinese warships are now clearly opening distance, their headings diverging from the American ship's track. They remain visible, but no longer intrusive. The encounter has resolved itself without a single system crossing into lethal posture. No weapons fired, no alarms sounded. But the logs are full. The footage is complete. The timestamps are precise. And that is what matters. The American destroyer disappears slowly into open water, her gray hull unchanged, her mission uninterrupted. Behind her, 5 Chinese warships fade into distance. The moment has passed, but it will not be forgotten. What it means, 6:22 hours. The sea returns to looking ordinary. The American destroyer continues on her planned course. Engines steady, wake unbroken, mission unchanged. From the outside, it appears uneventful. Inside the ship, it is anything but. Down in the Combat Information Center, the work is just beginning. Radar recordings are archived. Video feeds are indexed. Every maneuver, every bearing change, every moment of silence is time-stamped and preserved. This is how the U.S. Navy treats encounters like this, not as stories, but as data. On the bridge, the captain reviews the final entries with a glance. The watch team resets to routine posture without being told. There is no sense of triumph. There is only professionalism settling back into place. This was never about winning. It was about holding ground without crossing a line that didn't need to be crossed. The ship did not maneuver aggressively. It did not accelerate. It did not attempt to intimidate. It simply refused to yield space it was entitled to occupy. That refusal, expressed calmly and consistently, did more than any warning ever could. The Chinese warships learned something in those minutes. So did the American crew. Encounters like this always teach both sides something. For the sailors on board, the takeaway is straightforward. Procedures worked. Discipline held. The chain of command remained intact under pressure. That is not accidental. It is the result of years of training that assumes the worst day might come quietly, without notice, in calm seas under a clear sky. Out here, restraint is not passive. It is active control. Every decision made during the encounter was made with an understanding of consequences that extend far beyond this ship. A single overreaction can echo through fleets. A single miscalculation can redraw lines that take decades to erase. That is why nothing dramatic happened. That is why nothing needed to. The destroyer did exactly what it was designed to do: operate forward, remain lawful, and maintain presence without provocation. It demonstrated capability by not using it. It demonstrated resolve by not advertising it. This is the part of naval power most people never see. No missiles, no explosions, no footage meant for screens back home, just quiet professionalism applied at the edge of risk. And that quiet is deliberate, because in the modern maritime environment, escalation rarely begins with gunfire. It begins with proximity, with silence on the radio, with angles tightening by degrees. What stopped this encounter from becoming something else was not chance. It was restraint reinforced by readiness. By the time the Chinese warships were well clear, the destroyer's crew had already moved on. Watches rotated. Logs were finalized. The ship pressed ahead into open water as if nothing of note had occurred. But something had. A line had been tested, and it held. Somewhere else, in another stretch of ocean, another watch will stand another day. Another radar contact will appear. Another set of numbers will start to shrink. And the same question will hang in the air, unspoken but understood. Will this remain professional? That answer is never guaranteed. It has to be earned every time. For now, the American destroyer continues her transit. Gray hull, steady against blue water, carrying with her a record of an encounter resolved not by force, but by discipline. No shots fired. No words wasted.